Good evening. I am Rebecca Hawthorne, President of the League of Women Voters, Wayzata Plymouth area. I would like to welcome our candidates, our audience, and our viewers on behalf of our host, the League of Women Voters, Wayzata Plymouth area. The League of Women Voters is a 104-year-old volunteer, nonpartisan organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. It is our purpose in sponsoring forums such as these to provide you with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss face-to-face the issues that are important to you. This is a nonpartisan forum. We ask that campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts not be worn, nor signs or literature be distributed in this room. Please silence your electronic devices at this time. And now I would like to introduce your moderator for this evening's forum, William Johnson, a City of Plymouth resident and a member of the League of Women Voters, Wayzata Plymouth area.
Good evening. Tonight's forum is provided to give you the opportunity to learn about the candidates running for one of 4 open seats on the Westonka School Board. There's never enough time to cover all the issues in a setting such as this. If your questions are not addressed, feel free to contact the candidates directly, and I'm sure some will probably stay around after the forum. The League of Women Voters posts complete unedited recordings of the forums. Editing is authorized only for official media reporting. Only the full unedited recording may be used by other persons and organizations. All right, some ground rules for this evening's forum are as follows. Candidates will be allowed an opening statement with a maximum of 1 minute to state their experiences, platforms, and objectives. A question and answer period will follow the opening statements. The answers will be confined to 1 minute unless otherwise designated by the moderator. Opening statements will be given in alphabetical order, and the questions will then be answered in a rotating order. A 15-second warning sign will be held up by our timekeepers, and then after the 15-second warning expires, there will hold up a stop sign. So I'd ask the candidates at that point, please finish your sentence. You don't have to stop in mid-word, but finish your sentence so that everybody gets a fair chance to be heard. No references of a personal nature will be tolerated. A person's public record may be examined, but not their character. This forum is made available to encourage the voting public to focus on the issues and not on personalities. We ask that there be no demonstrations of support or opposition to the candidates or their positions, and that the candidate be allowed their full time to get their points across. The public will be encouraged to submit questions online in advance. For those in the audience, if you do have a question, write it on a 3x5 card available from our volunteers and raise your hand to have it picked up. Audience questions will be taken for the first 30 minutes of the forum. The timekeeper will alert the moderator when 30 minutes have elapsed. Questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be used. Those that fall in the same general area will be consolidated. The candidates running for one of 4 seats on the Westonka Independent District 277 School Board are Ralph Harrison, Heidi Marty, David W. Olson, John J. Quinn, Christopher Refkin, and Brian Roth. All candidates were invited to participate in the forum tonight. Candidate Christopher Refkin declined to attend. As stated in our candidate participation policy, we will proceed in alphabetical order with opening statements. All right, at this time, I would ask Ralph Harrison to please begin your 1-minute introductory remarks.
Age over beauty, I guess. My name's Ralph Harrison. I've lived in this district with my family for about 27 years. I had 3 children go through the district and all benefited greatly from it. I'm very proud of the legacy of success that this district has shown, and we have a very good example of that recently with the recent MCA scores and how well we did on a statewide basis. Just another example. I also greatly appreciate the school district's openness and inclusivity of people, of all the students, no matter what their backgrounds are. And sometimes you don't see that from the outside so much. And I know this to be the case because I've been on the school board for 12 years, running for a 4th time. You ask why? Well, because we have some challenges ahead of us. Namely, the biggest challenge we have is retrofitting our school buildings, which are very old. We need to do this in order to ensure the future success and the legacy of this school district.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Heidi Marty.
Hi, I'm Heidi Marty, and I'm running for re-election to the Westonka School Board. I've lived in the district for 21 years with my husband, Todd Mickelson, and our daughter, Eve, who graduated from Westonka in 2021. I've been on the board since 2017, currently serve on the Policy Committee, the Joint Parent Advisory Board, and I'm the Westonka representative to Intermediate School District 287. As a school district, we're tasked with educating every child that walks through our doors, and in order to do that effectively, we need to provide a welcoming environment for all and ensure that we have the staff and the programming to meet each student where they are. We need to strive toward each student becoming engaged with their learning, encouraging their interests and strengths, and setting them up for success after high school. I'm running for re-election to continue pursuing and supporting these efforts and to continue the initiatives we've begun in the areas of academic achievement, mental health support, and facility improvements.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from David W. Olson.
Hello, I'm Dave Olson, and I am running for a seat on the District 277 board. I'm a 39-year resident of Mound. I raised 4 children in town here, and 1 daughter-in-law was also married into the family. They're all Mound Westonka residents. They went on to successful careers and professionals, and they are largely due to the fact that Westonka provided a very good college preparatory program for them. I'm a 30-year project engineer for a Swiss engineering company. I've done projects all over the world and experienced a wide range of cultures and industrial disciplines. I believe my skill set would complement our projects and range of cultures and things like that all over in the Westonka, or the Westonka District 277. My priorities are to have a safe, welcome, and diverse environment, anticipating the changing needs of students, strong college and vocational preparation, and strong kindergarten starts.
All right, thank you. And now we'll hear from John Quinn.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting the forum, and to my fellow candidates for stepping up to potentially serve our community, and for all those attending. I'm running for school board because I believe in our schools and our community. We have a great thing going here, and I want to help us keep it going. As you know, our district has been ranked highly by School Digger and U.S. News and World Report. This is a testament to the hard work of our teachers, staff, superintendent, and our board. I'm a proud parent of 11-year-old twins who attend Grandview, and my wife, Meg, who works at the high school. I have a vested interest in the success of our schools, and I'm committed to providing our students with the best possible education. For clarity, I support the capital projects renewal and the bond referendum, along with the goals outlined for the school year by Superintendent Borg. I'm confident that my professional and personal experiences will allow me to serve our schools in a professional, collaborative, and thoughtful manner, as well as being committed to transparency and accountability, and an advocate of parental and community involvement. I humbly ask for your vote on Election Day. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Brian Roth.
I vividly remember coming through these same doors when I was a kid, heading to learn to swim class, smelling the chlorine in the hallway, and I never thought I'd be sitting here serving on the Westonka School Board. But here I am, seeking re-election, so I can continue to work with excellent people to deliver educational excellence to our students. Never did I think Mound Westonka would be considered one of the top 5 school districts in the state. And to do that without the facilities and resources that some of our neighboring districts have is a true testament to the school board of the past couple years, as well as Kevin Borg and his leadership team. In short, I'm a big supporter of the facilities improvement project. Westonka stock is rising, and we need to continue to invest in our students and our community. And number two, I'm not here to make sweeping changes, but I am here to put in the work and to work with administration to implement continuous improvement to help our students. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will now start the questions, and the candidates will be answering in a rotating order. They have 1 minute, and please let me know if you need me to repeat a question. We'll start with a general question. What specific experiences do you bring that prepare you for the role of a Westonka School Board member whose duties include setting educational policies, reviewing budgets, and dealing with personnel and facilities issues? And so the first question will start with David Olson.
As I said, I was a 30-year project engineer for a Swiss engineering company. I had a chance to go all over the world, and I had a chance to view other school districts and things like that in the general population. And I can tell you that I'm a firm believer in public education, because schools without a good public education, countries never really reach their full potential. I've seen that firsthand. But I believe I bring a wealth of experience in my management techniques. I was in charge of budgets, I was in charge of design, and I had to actually bring a finished, fulfilled project to the customer. Much the same way, I've worked with people who were very kind and helpful, and I've worked with people who haven't been so kind and helpful, but we had a chance to work it out. So I'd like to bring these skills to the board, and I think they would be very complementary.
All right, thank you. Next we'll hear from John Quinn.
All right, thank you, Bill. Well, with a 20-year career in financial services, I feel I have a proven track record of success in building and running business lines with multiple employees from diverse backgrounds, with also a deep understanding of both the operational and financial aspects of an organization. I strive on being an active listener, collaborator, and partnership builder. I believe those are key attributes that build consensus, achieve common goals and partnerships with parents, teachers, staff, and the community in the best interest of the district, ensuring all voices are heard. And like I said earlier, we have a great community here. My desire is to help it be successful, and I feel an effective school board is critical to ensure we have a strong foundation here in the community and that all students have access to high-quality education. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Heidi Marty.
I currently serve on the policy committee, where we evaluate the effectiveness of current school policies and just make sure that they're up to date. We reevaluate them on a regular basis and assess if they are appropriate to the current needs of our district. I also work on assessing new teacher contracts with the superintendent when those come up for renewal, so working on aspects of hiring and contractual arrangements with teachers. We assess new initiatives in programming and services as a regular part of our board activities. That's in conjunction with assessing the goals set out by Superintendent Borg and Assistant Superintendent Femright, and so that we spend a lot of time on the board doing just that, assessing the work of the priorities and the policies.
All right, thank you. Brian Roth.
All right, I would say 4 things. First of all, I know the community. I'm a former student. I grew up here. I work here at Allen Alma's, and I know the people around here. Number 2, I have experience working on various public boards. So I'm a current Westonka School Board member. I serve on the policy committee as well and on the facility improvement or the facility committee. I also have spent 13 years on serving on parks commissions for both Mound and City of Orono. And through that, I have a track record of being collaborative and transparent. Number 3 is I'm a problem solver. My experience as a CPA and a business consultant, I can ask the right questions and I get to the right, to fair answers. And number 4, I have a vested interest in this work. I have 2 young kids in the program, in the in the school, and I have 2 nephews in the school, and I have many kids, close friends that are in the school here too.
All right, thank you. And Ralph Harrison.
Well, I spent the last 12 years as the treasurer of the school board and also as the chair of the financial committee. So I have a little bit of insight into how school finances work, and they are not what you might think they are. They are very unique, very different, and very unpredictable on a year-to-year basis. Different from what I have been accustomed to. I was trained in financial services and economics. I have an MBA from the University of Minnesota, all of which doesn't mean a hell of a lot when it comes to school finances. But it sounds good. But it does allow you to how to think about things and how to solve problems and how to deal with unknowns. For my career, I've basically been in financial services all my life. I manage investment portfolios, again, dealing with risk markets and so on. A lot of unpredictable things happen. So I just feel that over the years, I've had thank you.
Thank you. All right, now apparently there are 2 bond referendums, so we'll drill down into some questions about funding. Question, in November, voters will be asked to renew an existing capital projects levy that provides a strong technology system and access to up-to-date curriculum without a tax increase. What is your position on this levy and why? And we'll begin with John Quinn.
Yeah, good question, Bill. You know, I would say with question 1, coming to the voters, I mean, number 1, there is no tax increase. Technology, right, is also a strong foundation needed, and especially at this age of education, though, as well. And also, with that no tax increase, and jump into question 2, though, too, we'll still be the lowest among the school districts in Hennepin County in terms of property taxes in 2024. So I'm all for it. We got to keep a great thing going, and yeah, I'm a thumbs up.
All right, thank you. David Olson.
I tend to agree with what my colleague has said there, but I think we have to look at children as more of an asset rather than a cost. I mean, they tick all the boxes on this. They've actually done the research. They've extended their information to the community. They've got a consensus, and then they moved on to consensus. Basically, any school board can tell you by not spending anything that they're doing the right job. But the fact is that somebody has to stick their neck out. These are way behind. We're way behind on these upgrades. We're way behind on the safety issues, and we really have to move forward with that.
All right, thank you. And next, Brian Roth.
Yeah, I am in favor of both questions, to anticipate the next one. But I'm in favor of we've relied on, as a school district, we've relied on the funding that comes from that bond that we're renewing. It's important that we keep up with technology. There's a lot of things changing in the world, and we need to continue to invest in those changes. I think that as a school district, we're lagging a little bit behind. There was, not too long ago, there was a bond that was not passed in the early 2000s, and I think that we're still making up for it a bit.
All right, thank you. Ralph Harrison.
So we're talking about the levy, correct? Not the bond, not the
Right, it's the levy that...
the levy. Two-stage levy, not the upcoming referendum.
We'll get, the next question deals with the...
Okay. So we're talking about the levy, which can be confused with the bond referendum that's the $93 million big horse out there. But the levies, these levies are very important for the school districts because it gives us a predictable revenue of cash that we can depend on for years out. And this particular levy was done in a very smart way, two-stage, started in 19 at a lesser level, and then it staged into the second level in year 24, and it bumps up. Now, this was all approved. We did it that way because we didn't really feel that we needed the money in the first few years of the levy, and we didn't want to take that from the taxpayers. But these levies are extremely important because, as I say, without them, we can't run the schools. This technology only gets more expensive every year. And we were way, way behind the game. Now we're ahead of the game. So, again, it's crucial, provides a steady stream of revenue, and thank you.
Thank you. Heidi Marty.
Yes, it's absolutely necessary that we renew this levy. We have come to rely on the one-to-one devices that is so important for the learning that the kids are doing now. We need to be able to maintain the infrastructure, the equipment, the staff support that's needed for students to use the appropriate technology that they can apply to their learning. So it is really absolutely necessary, and it will not result in a tax increase.
All right, thank you. All right, this next question then goes to the building bond investment. In November, voters will be asked to approve a new $93.4 million building bond investment in school facilities spread over a 25-year payment period to support safety and security, deferred maintenance, and a redesign of Mound Westonka High School. What is your position on the proposed bond issue and why? Beginning with Heidi Marty.
Well, I'm in full support of the bond issue. It's a large one, and we know that, but we spent 2 years doing the research and studies and surveying the community and staff and doing the groundwork to distill it to absolutely what is necessary and no more. So I think a lot goes into the background of getting ready for a bond like this and putting it to the community. We're not going to put something forward to the community that we don't think we absolutely support and that we feel like we can justify to the community. And we are always extremely grateful that Westonka continues to trust us to be fiscally responsible with these type of improvements. So I absolutely support the bond.
Thank you. Brian Roth.
Well, I'll start by saying this is the reason I'm here. I mean, investing in the facilities is such a important thing for me that this is why I'm serving on the board right now. I am on the facilities committee, and so I've been a part of the work that we've done to assess our needs and to make sure that we are addressing all of the needs that we have. And I can say that, you know, our poor teachers right now are working despite the facilities. We need to continue to support them with the facilities. I would also say that it is important that we add to the vocational spaces and offerings that we have so that we can build a track that is maybe not the traditional four-year college track and help people be successful that way too. And the third thing I would say is it's important that we have pride in our spaces, and you can see that here.
All right, thank you. Ralph Harrison.
Well, going back on your point, pride in our spaces is very important, and if we want to continue the momentum that the school district has, we have to be able to be proud of all our facilities. Case in point. But our high school is about 52 years old. Grandview, I think, is 65 years old. Obviously, they need some help. If we're going to attract students and staff, we have to have top-class facilities. And frankly, this is the only real weakness that this school district has right now. We get this done, and we are going to be good to go because we have everything else going for us. We have the academics, we have the staff, we have the reputation coming along strongly, but we need to have a good place for people to come and go to school from a facility standpoint. And it affects parents when they walk in. They want to send their kid to a place they can be proud of in terms of what it looks like. So I'm fully in favor of it. I think it's essential to continue the progress that we have.
All right, thank you. David Olson.
I'm obviously also in favor of the referendum, and basically for all the reasons that were just covered. But one of the reasons I think about, and it would keep me up at night, I really want to sit on this board, but One of the big issues right now is the safety and the lockdown necessary to make sure our students are safe in the way the entrance would be designed. Heaven forbid that someone nefarious would come in and do something, and I hope to God that never happens, but I don't want to have to go back to any students that lose their life or get injured in a nefarious accident like that and have to explain to them that we didn't do everything we possibly could to make sure that student safety was affected. I like the fact that we have a proud building. I like the fact that we're putting in a new heating system, but that has to be tantamount to making sure we've done everything we can.
Thank you. John Quinn.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. And I agree 100% with all the statements just made. So also, I'm in full support, though, as well. You know, one of the top priorities and the end result for a school board is to ensure a district that can be the best that it can be for all our students to strive in. So that begins with technology, but also specific to this question with the bond referendum, to our buildings. Number one, having a source of pride for the community, for our students, though, as well. And the fact is that our buildings are anywhere from 50 to 70 years old. You know, so having these improvements, also with the safety in a secured environment, are going to be key. So again, in full support, thumbs up.
All right, thank you. All right, the next question is a question from the audience, and it'll go first to Brian Roth. How do you feel about current Westonka teacher salaries and how they compare with the surrounding districts? Mr. Roth.
Well, we have excellent teachers here, and I wish that we could pay them truly what they're worth, but unfortunately, we're not. But we're paying them, I think, what we can, and I think that I'm not on the committee to negotiate the salaries, but I do know that we have a good working relationship with the union, and I hope that all the teachers understand how much we support them, even if we can't pay them as much as we would like to.
All right, thank you. Ralph Harrison.
Well, we try to stay competitive. You know, we can't pay as much as Minnetonka pays. We try to pay between Orono and Waconia, because those are our two main rivals. And I have been on the negotiating committee with for the teacher negotiations the last, well, I don't know how many, 8 times, 12 times, it's been whatever. It's every 2 years. This time around, it was delightful to be able to give them a fairly decent bump. I think it was around 3%. In the past, we're dependent on what the state gives us. And frankly, we have a lot of unfunded mandates set up on us by the federal government. And we have to, as we always say, we try to be as transparent with the teachers as we can. We try to have them help them understand what our budget is and what we can truly afford, and we give them as much as we can. We know that they're crucial to the success of this enterprise.
All right, thank you. The time has expired by the way, for questions from the audience, and we do have some more. All right, continuing on with this question about teacher salaries, John Quinn.
Yeah, first off, number one, we should all in this community be very, very proud of our teachers and staff. The rankings that we reviewed earlier all speak for themselves. So we should be very, very proud of that. Also, our tenure. The tenure of our teachers and staff are outstanding. From my understanding, we have 130 teachers, or 68% of them, with 5+ years of service. That keeps going up. We have 97 teachers with 10+ years of service. That's roughly 51%. And then we have a whole bunch more, 20+ years and 30+ years. So that the tenure is there, the rankings are there. We need an environment safe and secure. But then also, we have to retain our teachers and staff around our surrounding communities, though, as well. So with that, wherever we can make enhancements and allowed, we got to stay competitive. We need our teachers and staff. They're doing a job. Let's continue to support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi Marty.
I think we compare to neighboring districts pretty favorably. The budget is tied to state funding, of course, and I think that we had a pretty positive outcome in this latest legislative session that allowed us to do right by our teachers. I think we do a pretty good job of attracting teachers with good salaries and welcoming, and the welcoming, supportive school community that we have. We try to do the very best. I will just refer back to what Ralph said. We understand fully how important good staff is. There's very little that's more important than getting the staff that we need here for our students. I hope the teachers realize that we are always trying to do the very best that we can. The reality is teaching as a profession needs to be encouraged more and supported more. We need more teachers in the pipeline. We have impending teacher shortages all over, so that's a concern of mine.
All right, thank you. David Olson.
I agree. The teachers are, generally speaking, doing very well, and they're generally speaking paid on a level that would be pretty commensurate for a school system our size. However, I do believe the country is going to be going through a cycle where a lot of industries, teachers included, are going to be wanting a higher bump. And I'm not wanting to be a fearmonger or anything, but what I think we ought to be doing is more getting out in front of the problem. One of the things we could do is, for instance, in our own indigenous school system, have a teacher shadowing program where we would have some students who are interested in the teaching profession shadowing some of the teachers and working with them, hopefully kind of getting a homegrown kind of stock of teachers. But basically, I think we ought to be able to get out in front of this problem, and the environment and how we pass these bond issues are really going to be important. If they fail, the teachers got to be looking at that and saying, you know what, maybe it's time to move on.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a curriculum question, and then we'll get to another question from the audience regarding library books. Curriculum question. The Education Act passed by the legislature and signed by the governor this year includes several curriculum requirements such as civics and personal finance classes, as well as the use of evidence-based practices in phonics and reading comprehension. What is your opinion regarding these requirements, beginning with Mr. Harrison?
Well, it seems like every so many years we have different iteration on how to teach kids. We've seen this in math and we've seen it in reading, and it seems that a lot of kids were not treated well because of some philosophy about reading and the lack of phonics. I personally think that phonics is very important, and in this school system, my understanding is that we've always taught it along with the other quote-unquote newer ways of teaching, reading. So I feel pretty comfortable that we have that covered. I have a lot of confidence in our administration in terms of how the curriculum is set up and what really works for kids. They study these things, and I think a lot of disservice has been done because the phonics program was kind of put aside in many instances.
All right, thank you. Brian Roth.
Yeah, so Mark Fenright does an excellent job with our curriculum, and I have all the trust in the world that he is doing right by all of our students. Now, when the state, every year or periodically, they come down with certain mandates and certain changes, and Mark does a great job of incorporating those, following those standards, but doing it in a way that he knows is best. And I commend him for that, and I support him in doing that.
All right, thank you. John Quinn.
Yeah, there's one thing that we know. Our teachers and staff can certainly adapt. And if we have mandates around a curriculum, we know we can change with that, though, as well. And with leadership at the school, though, as well, with any mandated programs, we just need to continue to support our teachers and staff.
All right, thank you. David Olson.
All good things. Civics, one of the problems we have today is we have a wonderful country, but we also have a lot of citizens that don't seem to really understand how the country is run. Phonics, it was a travesty it was taken out in the first place. It's one of the fundamental tools for teaching kids to read and to read early. And practical skills. Look at all the young adults have to deal with right now today. I'd like to be able to say that in my day it was easier to get started. It's not. It's much harder now for kids to get started because they, in many cases, don't understand how to rent a car, how to buy a car, how to lease a car, what's involved with a contract when you get a student loan. A lot of these things just have to be taught, and unfortunately, they're added on, and it's going to cost, and we're going to need people to do it, but it has to be done.
All right, thank you. And Heidi Marty.
So the civics requirement and the financial literacy requirement, I totally understand that people want to see more of that kind of coursework in the classroom. The challenge is adding classes in, especially in high school. There just aren't enough school hours for the kids to take all the classes that they need. But I feel pretty confident that our staff can incorporate this kind of material into existing courses. I fully support adding this type of coursework, and I don't want to put more on teachers, but I feel strongly that this is the kind of material that could be incorporated into other existing coursework.
All right, thank you. All right, next question, and this is an audience question. What is your position on books being pulled from school library shelves or excluded from curriculum in response to requests from parents of students or other members of the community? And we'll start with David Olson.
Bad ideas are going to fall by the wayside. Good ideas will be kept around. Basically, the problem is you have certain children that seem to be born age 39 and some aren't. So we have to be able to always give that freedom. I'm against banning books. I really do trust libraries and teachers to make things age appropriate, and I'm fully aware that there is age appropriate material they have to be aware of. And I will never disagree with a parent who feels that they should be the sole proprietor of the moral teaching of their children. That's basic to our society. But on the other hand, if we start pulling books off the shelf, people are going to say, well, let's say the Bible has got some very, very evil people in it. Maybe we should pull that too. The point is, it becomes a zero-sum game for everyone, and I'm against it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Harrison.
I'm against it, absolutely. As was just stated, we have professionals in our school system that ferret out these books. They look at the literary content and whether or not they're appropriate or not. You know, anybody can pull a one-liner out of a 200-page book and say this is pornography or whatever, and they probably never read the book. You have to take the context of the entire piece of literature. If parents are truly upset about their child being able to have access to some book in the library, what our policy is, they won't be able to take it out. They can tell the staff, I don't want my child to have access to this or that book, and we will abide by that wish. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I have a little tolerance for this lack of intellectual freedom as far as books go, and I guess I made myself clear.
All right. Ms. Marty.
Yes, our media specialists in our schools are professionals. They carefully curate the selections that are available in our school libraries for age level interest and appropriateness, and I trust their judgment. But the fact is, parents always have options when it comes to curriculum at Westonka. If a parent doesn't want their child reading a book that's part of the coursework, they can explore alternatives to the reading. If a parent doesn't want their child to be able to check out a book at the library, they make that known to the media specialist, and they will not be allowed to do so. At this point, I feel it's a little hard for me to fathom. There are folks out there fighting to get books out of schools and libraries. I believe many of their stated motives and concerns are disingenuous and seek to marginalize certain communities.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we have experts. These are our teachers, they're our staff. They're trained and educated in their profession. We have people that look at the curriculum. While I always support parental and community involvement in ensuring that all voices are heard, then we talk about it. But as many as stated on the board here today, let's give our children and their respective parents options. If somebody is not down with a book, they're not allowed to check it out, though, as well. At the end of the day, let's have the trust in our teachers that are doing an outstanding job as we speak today.
Thank you. And Mr. Roth?
Geez, when did books become the villain? I mean, this is a divisive topic in our community. I don't understand why books, should enlighten our students. And so I agree with everything that my colleagues here said, that there's a framework in place here. It was well thought out. The media specialists and the librarians and the administration all have this framework that they contributed to designing, and then they implement it, and it's working. And if parents have questions about certain books, specific books, then the media specialists do a good job of applying that framework. And if other parents have questions about why a book isn't in the library, which has happened in just the last couple months here, hey, we'll apply the same framework, and those books will go in the library. It's a consistent framework. That's why we have it.
All right, thank you. Here's another question that's kind of in the news. Regarding the role of school resource officers in the Westonka schools, what do you think is the appropriate balance between the needs of law enforcement, the needs of our educators, and the safety of our students? And first goes to Mr. Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, safety and security, it's a top priority. Going back to the bond referendum, that's going to help us, though, as well, right? Modernizing our buildings. Personally, I'm committed to believe, and believe that by working together, we can create that safe and secure school environment where all students can strive. But specifically, working with staff and teachers to ensure that safe and secure learning environment, including physical security, and also a positive environment. Supporting programs also for students who are struggling emotionally or behaviorally. And work with law enforcement to develop a strong partnership to ensure we have that safe environment with appropriate responses to threats or incidents. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Olson.
I agree. I believe we have 2 school resource officers. I know there's been a lot of districts, for whatever reason, have eliminated them, and I think that's a move in the wrong area. I do believe the state is right now, maybe even calling a special session, to be able to deal with this problem and how to reconcile the fact that the SRO officers have to operate in certain parameters and the school has to operate in certain parameters, and we have to be able to get those together. So there is going to be some changes on there. I'm glad the resource officers are here. My wife was the district school nurse for the Orono district for 17 years. She had a lot of discourse with the SROs, and basically there's some of the finest officers and some of the finest people we're ever going to have working with kids. So I'm fully invested in the fact that we need school resource officers, but we do need to make some changes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Marty.
I think a big part of the job of school resource officers is to create the environment of safety, but primarily to create relationships with the kids to help them feel safe and to be a resource for safety if there's an issue within the buildings. I think the approach that we have here at Westonka is working. We have trusted officers that have been in the buildings a long time. I feel we have an effective relationship with the officers, and that is working as it should. I know there are issues about the level of restraint that they are able to use. I think primarily the relationship issue, the relationship that these officers establish with our students creates the environment that we want here.
All right, thank you. Mr. Roth.
Bill, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Regarding the role of school resource officers in the Westonka schools, what do you think is the appropriate balance between the needs of law enforcement, the needs of our educators, and the safety of our students?
Yeah, I take a little bit exception with the question because I don't think that it's not a balance. It's if we're supporting the officers, by supporting the officers, we're supporting the staff, we're supporting the students. It's not either or. So I talked to Chief Farniak at Orono about this same issue, and I think the state got it wrong, and I think that they'll eventually correct it, which is good. I think it's ridiculous that our SRO officers that are in the school that have the same exact training as officers that are not SRO are hamstrung and can't do what they need to do. So an officer can come and into our school and conduct the same restraint that is necessary, and then the SRO officer just has to sit by. I think that there's an inconsistency there that needs to be addressed.
All right, thank you. Mr. Harrison.
Well, I think that they're necessary. I mean, I think it's unfortunate. They were never in my school when I was growing up, and I would never even have thought about it. But that's not the case these days. And I know that the administration wants them there, and the students seem to want them there. There's a comfort level, as Heidi pointed out. There's a trust level there, and there's, you know, these resource officers build relationship with the kids, which allows them to sometimes circumvent some bad circumstances that we never want to think about, and that's why they're there. As far as what Brian is talking about, I am just not that familiar with what level of force should be used. I would find a big problem. I think it would be a bad look if some violent things happened to our kids in the schools from the resource officers, but and the governor seemed to think that it was not going to be such a bad issue, but I frankly don't know about that.
All right. This is another question that is in the news and, of course, ties into the funding issue also. But following school shootings in our country, there are calls for increased safety measures in schools. What specific actions would you support be taken by the school board to increase safety in our schools while also considering the emotional impact on students and the staff of such actions? And the question first goes to Mr. Roth.
Yeah, so the school district focuses on eliminating barriers to learning, okay? That's a lot of their job. And safety of our students and comfort of our students in our school is an important thing that we need to address. So there are two things that come to mind that I would suggest. One is there's passing the facilities improvement project will do a lot to increase security, physical security of our spaces in our schools. And second, what we were talking about, the SRO officers, I mean, supporting them and supporting that relationship with our local, the Orono and the Minnetrista police departments is an important thing.
All right, thank you. Ms. Marty.
I think parents can feel confident that the district is laser focused on keeping kids safe at school. We're continuously evaluating, improving ways to keep them safe from bullying, from infectious illness, and from potential dangers from outside. We work to support student mental health and improve school climate. That's one of the main ways we're focused on making sure every kid feels safe and supported and they have the ability to thrive at school. And then the referendum includes many necessary security enhancements. They harden our building entrances. They create the interior zone separation and door monitoring that allow for more effective control of our buildings if the unthinkable should occur.
All right, Mr. Quinn.
Yeah, I agree with many of the statements that were just stated. You know, safety and a secured environment is a top priority. We always have to revisit. We have to have strong partnerships with law enforcement, supporting both the mental health services for both staff, teachers, and students, but also I would add into that, though, enrichment activities through sports, arts, and culture to help enrich all. And then, of course, going back to mental health and special services for our students, though, too, to feel safe and secure while supporting the overall safety and security. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison.
Well, obviously I agree with most of everything that's been said in the past, and I would reiterate that with the passing of this bond issue, assuming that it happens, I think that will alleviate a lot of problems, particularly in the middle school where we have an entrance which is inadequate and will be completely changed around, and specifically for this reason, because it is unsafe. People can come and go out of that entrance, and it's not monitored. It's not a good situation. You know, we talk about doors automatically locking and so on, and that would be part of the bond issue, but I'm not an expert in this. I do think that one way you try to circumvent this is creating a culture of openness in the school so that the students feel comfortable. You know, bullying is a big deal, and if you look at these school shootings, a lot of it goes back to kids being bullied in school. So when I grew up, there was a lot of bullying in school. I don't see that in our school, and I think it's a great thing.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Olson.
First is the school resource officers, maintaining that and maybe making some changes. Hopefully that'll come from the state. Number two is the facilities improvement, which we've already gone over. But number three, and if I'm honored enough to do this job, is management by walking around. And by that I mean I had two rules when I was raising my children. Number one, you have to love them. Number two, you have to pay attention to them. And by management by walking around, I mean I would go into the schools just to take the temperature, just to look around. How are the kids getting along? Do you see any issues? Is there any potential safety things? Are there things of bullying, things like that? Sometimes just by walking around, you can kind of take the temperature of a facility. And if I'm honored enough to be chosen for this job, I'd do that.
All right, thank you. Next question. Westonka School District policy is to provide equal educational opportunity for all students. What are your recommendations for building an inclusive culture at Westonka schools for every student? Beginning with Mr. Harrison.
Well, I guess that's one thing I really appreciate about our school system. I think that the teachers here really care about the kids, and as I say, I've been on the board for a long time, so I've seen that. I had all three kids go through the school system. That's not always the case. I mean, kids can get lost in a big school. You know, we have a saying, you know, small school opportunities, big school, or small school activities, big school opportunities. You know, we're in a good spot because we're not so big that we can't get control over things. And I think that, you know, the way you're going to create a healthy environment, an inclusive environment, an environment that's welcoming to all the students is to have a staff that really cares. And I think that anybody that's been around Westonka for a while and is familiar with the school systems, they realize that, and they see that as their kids go through the school system. And I think that's the best thing we can do.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Marty.
As a board, we approved a comprehensive review of how well our district is supporting students' mental health and what the school climate is. And the results of that review helped create a plan of action that we're currently implementing and will continue over the next couple of years. So I feel like monitoring and supporting that effort is extremely important. But I think back in 21, we had a cultural competency plan that addressed this as well, just making sure that we were ensuring that our school environment was inclusive and welcoming for all students and eliminating any barriers for students to learn at their highest potential. We made a great effort in that plan, and now with the multi-tiered systems of support to support mental health, I think we're doing all that we can to ensure that kids feel safe in their learning.
Thank you. Mr. Olson.
For 6 years, my wife and I we worked with kindergartners in in a program called the Skill Builders. These were where we take the kids out of class that were slightly behind and things like that and help them work on their letters and numbers. I'm firmly convinced that a lot of times, some of these problems really actually begin in kindergarten or maybe even preschool, where certain students are kind of pigeonholed, they're slightly behind and everything else, and they come to be seen by the teacher or their fellow students as someone that is not quite up to standard or not quite someone you want to play with, that kind of thing. And I think having a program like the Skill Builders program in the Mount Westonka School District would be a big help. I know we do a lot, but if we can get more parents involved with doing these simple skill builder exercises, I think we could eliminate a lot of the later problems that we may have in the student population.
All right, thank you. Mr. Quinn?
Well, inclusion and well-being, I mean, that's essential, right? And especially in a small community like ours, a growing community though as well. I often go back to, all the work that our teachers and staff have been doing. Again, the ratings, the ratings and the rankings that we just have had those accolades on are key, but also supporting, again, activities, sports, arts, culture to enrich all, but also including those mental health and special services. Let's just keep it going, right, and making improvements. But all of those enrichment and those activities and mental and special needs services are really, really important to continue to be laser focused on.
Thank you. Mr. Roth?
Yeah, I appreciate everything that has been said on this. The small school advantage, like Ralph talked about, I think is key here. I mean, this is a culture that we have here that we should be very fortunate. We are very fortunate to have where my kids, all these kids, they enter in kindergarten, and the teachers and administration, I mean, most of them know all the kids, through the schools as they go up through the school system. And so it's really hard for kids to get lost, even if they wanted to. And so I think that's a great thing to identify where we need to add some support. And I think what Heidi said, she was referring to the MTSS, the multi-tiered system of support that we're implementing right now as a board. I think that's it's impressive. It's something that we worked on with the U of M to develop, and it's a way to, once we've identified a need in a kid, it's a way to add the support, give them the support that they need.
All right, thank you. All right, this one again is a qualification question, somewhat in the news too, I suppose. Please describe how you have found ways to collaborate successfully with people who have different views from yours, and if you can give any examples. And we begin with Heidi Marty.
So I think I'm a pretty good collaborator in most situations. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy listening to others' points of view. I tend to listen first and evaluate, and then come up with my own statements or my own positions. I feel like I work well with others and have done so in many roles that I've had as in my career and in extracurricular activities. I enjoy people, and I like to work as a group. It's one reason that I was so interested in joining the school board, a group of people interested in pursuing excellence in our schools and in our kids. That's a group effort I'm very interested in, so that's how I would say that.
Thank you. John Quinn.
Yeah, collaboration is key. Having an effective school board, it's critical that we have one. And our board has done an outstanding job thus far. We have to have that strong foundation. I strive upon being an active listener, a collaborator, and a partnership builder, though, as well. All those attributes, that they help in building consensus, achieving common goals and partnerships, with everybody involved. That's parents, teachers, staff, and in the community, all in the best interest of our end goal, making sure that we have the best schools and education for our children out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison.
Well, I like to think I'm a little more open-minded than I used to be. But my kids tell me that I'm getting better. I learn a lot from them. So, you know, some of us are a little slower, but, you know, we get going once we get going. But you know, you have to be, you have to have constructive arguments with people you don't agree with. If you don't have constructive argument, you're never going to come to a place where you can meet. And you know, we see this big time in the school districts now, and frankly, I do have a hard time seeing the other point of view sometimes. But I understand that the sincerity is there, and they truly believe, you know, that they're in the right position, and the school district is in the wrong position. And so you have to, you know, everybody is, you know, we represent everybody in the school district, whether we agree with them or not. And so we have to be collaborative, and thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Roth.
Yeah, so reasonable people with good intentions still disagree. I have years of experience of that in my career, but also, like I mentioned, 13 years working on commissions, parks commissions, and now on the school board. I've learned active listening is key to that, and the second thing is you know, strive towards compromise, and that's what I've demonstrated in my experience, and that's what I'll continue to do.
All right, Mr. Olson.
The last 10 years of my service life in my company, I was called upon to work on a lot of projects that had really gone south. Either they had poor design or poor profitability, that kind of thing, and I was called in to kind of manage them. And it's amazing how many times it's just three things you have to be able to do. One is to observe. You have to find out exactly what the problem is. Number two is to communicate. And number three, and this is really important and it saved us literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, is you simply ask them exactly in a perfect world, what do you want? What would you like to see done? And I was amazed that many, many times there simply was something very, very small that they wanted. And it was easy to do, but it just got so blown out of proportion. It's amazing sometimes that reasonable parents can become very unreasonable when the safety and welfare of their child is at stake. So we have to learn to deal with that, and we have to be sympathetic to that.
Thank you. All right, this question relates to mental health. How would you suggest our district address the mental health needs of our students, including ADHD, PTSD, anxiety, and depression? Mr. Roth.
Yeah, so I mentioned 2 questions ago about this MTSS that's being implemented, rolled out right now. It was a partnership that the school board worked with and the district worked with the U of M to develop, and it's very impressive structure, framework that involves training the staff, training our teachers, and in a way that can develop or can identify certain needs, and then it's a multi-tiered approach on how to support those individual students. And that's what I think we have a good solution that we're implementing right now, and I support that.
All right, thank you. Mr. Quinn.
Yeah, I know that's one of the top 5 priorities for the district, right? Mental health and special services. I'm not familiar with the MTSS, but what I need to become more familiar with, but knowing that we have a framework, we have the experts out there, we're addressing that, right? And we have to continue to do that. That involves going back to inclusion, well-being, everybody being welcoming, though, as well, and that overall safe and secure environment. So continuing that investment and keeping it as a priority, that's a must moving forward.
All right, Mr. Olson.
I agree. Basically, I have a sister-in-law who worked for almost 30 years in the Apple Valley school system as a para. Over that career, she's had broken legs, black eyes, bruises, bumps, and everything else. And the number one problem they have there is staff. They simply do not have enough staff to be able to address the needs for the wide range of students that they have to service. So we don't have the problems that they have down there, but what I am saying is we have to get out front. We have to change mindsets on how we accept these students, and then we have to provide the staff to be able to deal with them. And if we don't do that, we don't get out in front of that problem, it just exacerbates.
All right, Ms. Marty.
Yeah, I think we need to identify more staff for these type of support roles. And I think we are learning that we also need to train and empower all staff, teachers, all staff, to be able to identify and support the mental health issues that arise with the kids in their classroom. I think a huge part of this comes down to supporting the staff that is working with the kids, letting the professional development that goes into allowing them to understand what's going on with them, how best to support these kids and get them the services that they need or require, how to get them service the best and get them back in the classroom learning.
All right. Mr. Harrison.
Well, again, this has become it always has been a priority, but it's become a real priority in the last year or so, and it's been talked about. This program at the University of Minnesota was very deliberately done, and it's done in a way to make the process much more structured so that the staff knows how to react and how to go about taking care of these kids that have problems and recognizing the problems. But, you know, I think, I don't know how many psychologists we have on staff. I think we tried to increase that staffing over the last few years. Again, staffing is a huge issue. We just don't have all the resources that we need. But again, I think that fundamentally, you try to create as most inclusive environment and trusting environment that you can in the school system, so the kids understand that there's people that care about them, and you know that's the starting point. You start with that, and I think that helps out all across the board. But again, we can't do anything about not having enough staff.
All right. Thank you. All right. This, I guess, will be our last question. And they're trying to get at with this question is your priorities. So they're saying, if you could only affect change in one area of focus within the school district, what area would it be and why? So what is the issue that you're most passionate about? Mr. Quinn.
Yeah, I would kick this off by, look, the overall goal for our district is to be the best it can be for all students. If elected, my overall focus would be to ensure a district where all students can learn, grow, and thrive with also extreme community pride. So one of my top priorities is to continue to improve communication, parental involvement, and also community involvement. I believe those are successful to have a successful district, though, as well. Essential. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Olson.
Basically, I would think that the number one priority for me personally, although I would like to attend to all of them, is the fact that we have very good, strong college preparation program, and my children benefited greatly from that. But I think we should also move into areas of more vocational preparation. I think you're going to see a shift in the needs in colleges for the next 5 years, where less people will be tracking toward a college and more people will be tracking to vocational schools and vocational careers. And I think we have to do some preparation for that. For example, the company I work for had basically an apprenticeship program where they would train students. They would go to a year for Dunwoody and then 2 years at my company, and then they would go out and travel worldwide. These were fantastic jobs. And we have to do more to foster that with local businesses in a more vocational track.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Roth.
All right, so you want me to boil this all down to one, huh? Okay, well,
take us home.
I think I think that we've talked, and I think we're all supporting the facility improvement, the proposed facility improvements. And I think that that unlocks a whole bunch of potential for this, this district. Mr. Olson talked about the vocational track and being able to build that curriculum, that part of the curriculum. I think we've all talked about the physical security of the buildings, and I think that and this addresses that. And just bringing some of these buildings up to a place where it better supports the teachers, that it checks that off too. So this isn't, once we pass this, it's not the end. Once we pass this, it's only the beginning of the work to then take this and implement it correctly over the next 5 years, 4 years.
All right, thank you. Mr. Harrison.
Well, I concur with Brian, what Brian just said. I think that the bond issue is extremely high priority for me, but it's because it allows the continuance of what we have here. So that's, that's just kind of the way it is, I feel. But aside from that, for me, and what we look at as a measure of success in schools is the academic excellence. And there's no two ways about it. If we don't have academic excellence, we're not going to be happy. And we start with that. And so for me, to ensure that is the primary goal. And I understand and I appreciate the fact that many kids are not going to be college bound, and we need to set up pathways for them to find their passion as well, not necessarily going to college, but being successful in whatever vocation they want to be. So, thank you.
All right, Ms. Marty.
Yes, I was really happy to see the vocational opportunities that the new redesign at the high school is going to allow us to do. A lot of research went into kind of honing in on what vocational areas would give the most bang for the buck, and I think we've really done that. We looked at a lot of different schools and what a lot of different schools are offering, and I think we really landed on a good combination for the future of our students. One thing that hasn't got mentioned, when COVID was going on, our staff had to quickly get up to speed with all the technology and the tools to connect everyone and get them learning from home. There were a lot of challenges in implementing the distance learning. One of the problems was disparity in internet access that our community experiences, and I see improving internet access and connectivity as essential infrastructure for education in the 21st century.
All right, I lied to you. I actually have one more question, and then we'll hear your closing statements. And we'll begin with Ms. Marty. Are there any issues that we've not addressed tonight that you think need to be addressed?
We covered a lot of information. I think this did get mentioned, but I would like to reiterate. The reality is that teaching as a profession is not being encouraged, and we as a district and all over our state and the nation, we just don't have enough teachers in the pipeline to support the learning that our kids require. And I would really love to see more of an effort going into encouraging and rewarding the decision to pursue teaching as a profession with incentives given to college students to enter the field.
All right. Mr. Roth?
Yeah, so staffing is, I would echo what Ms. Marty had to say there. But we need to get teachers, but we also need to get specific people who are focused on special services and mental health. That is something, I know we've talked about it a lot tonight, and I know that's not a new topic, but I just want to reiterate the importance of that the school district, we do have a little bit of a turnover issue in that area, and I think that that's something that we need to lock down.
Okay. Mr. Harrison?
Well, the teacher staffing is a huge thing, which has been mention. One thing that hasn't been talked about too much here is how schools are funded. And people don't realize that the public schools are saddled with all kinds of what we call unfunded mandates. One big example of this is special need mandates. We are obligated to take every child and do the best that we can for them. This costs a lot of money. We are not compensated by the federal government to do this. If you're in a private school, you don't have to worry about this, right? So, people like to say, oh, this private school is so good, look at the scores. Well, it's not apples to apples. And people don't realize this. We depend on the state of Minnesota for most of our funding. Property taxes is a little bit of it, part of it, but the great majority is from the state of Minnesota. Now, luckily, the state of Minnesota,
Now finish
so
your
much
thought.
for the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota was more generous this year than they have been in the past because they had an $18 billion, budget surplus, which is it's nice they shared it a little bit, but previously in years past, we've been underfunded by the state. This is a problem for all schools.
All right, thank you. Mr. Olson.
Basically, as you said, mandates, and the problem we're having more and more of is the cycle of change and the stresses on these mandates. 50, 60 years ago, you had a school that you could reasonably ascertain at any given year it was going to change maybe a little bit on the curriculum, but not very much. Now, the cycle of change and the ability for school boards and school planners and administration to get ahead of these problems becomes tighter and tighter and tighter. So we have to be able to study these, put a lot more effort into studying the changes in the needs for the students because they're coming much faster than they've ever come before. We also have to provide, as Heidi said, a teacher gateway that we can get somebody in the pipeline, either through a shadowing program or something like that, to be able to get more teachers into the program, into the system.
All right, Mr. Quinn.
Yeah, so Bill, I think the original question was, are there any issues
That we
have
didn't
not-
address here that you feel passionate about, you think should be addressed?
Yeah, look, I mean, we covered a lot, and and thank you for all the questions tonight and from the audience. And I wouldn't say necessarily there's any one issue that we haven't covered, but I would say, for an effective board, right? And I think Brian, you actually mentioned this earlier. Identifying those barriers that are preventing improvement. That's what I think a board is there for, to be collaborative, to ensure that we're hearing a lot of the voices in the community from the parents, from the teachers, and the staff. And then those key focus areas that we all have to improve our schools, improve our environment so as well. So being able to identify those barriers, if they are present, and why are they there? Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll now call on each of you for your closing arguments, so gather your thoughts, and we'll lead off with David Olson.
Oh, okay. First of all, thank all of you for coming. It's nice to see everybody to have the interest and everything else, and it's nice to be able to get our across. So we thank the League of Women Voters. I'd like to thank the school districts for providing the venue, and for my fellow candidates. Even if it doesn't go my way, I'm fully confident these individuals can do an excellent job. Hopefully you vote for me, but I understand. And it's going to go on, and it'll do just fine. Basically, I'm a big proponent of mission statements. Any important job that you undertake should have some sort of a mission statement. You should think about what you're going to do, and this is mine. I will help to maintain and enhance trust, respect diversity, and listen to parents, school staff, and students to seek consensus. I will use this consensus to help our board develop a path forward that will maintain our high standards and have the best outcome for our students. I'm not, as a manager in an industry, you tend to learn very early that you want to underpromise and overdeliver. So I'm going to make an exception this time, and I'm going to make one promise. I can't exactly say how the results are always going to go out. No matter what happens, I don't think anybody can. But my promise to you will be this, that in doing my duty and doing my action, if I have the privilege to be elected, will be always toward the benefit of the student. My first question will be, how does this benefit the students of District 277? And if I can honestly answer that question positively, I'll know I did what I was supposed to do. Years ago, I came into this town, and I was busy with my job, and my wife came to me, we have to put the kids in school, and I didn't really even think about, okay, who's in our district? It's Westonka, good, send them there, we're done. And I very soon realized that a lot of these people were wonderful. This is a gem, and I'm eternally grateful to this system for doing what it did for me, and I hope that I can continue on, and then in years to come, you'll have that same confidence.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Harrison.
Well, I concur with everything you just said. And being a finance guy and tending to focus on return on investment, I think this is we have a very unique situation because we are a small district and we have excellent results. And we have done it very, very cost effectively for many years. And we have the lowest property tax of any school district in the county, and we continue to do that, and even if we pass this bond referendum, we are still going to have the lowest property taxes. It's to the point where it's embarrassing. We need to move on from this, but, it's an investment in the community. You look at this building. This is just a prime example of the contribution to the community. You look at the athletic center. The community participates in this all the time, and this is just the beginning. This school is the center of activity in this community, and if you don't want to pay more taxes, I get it, but the point is, if you don't want to do it for the right reason for the kids, do it for a personal reason, because the number one issue about what makes your real estate valuable in a community is how strong the school district is. So, if nothing else, do it for your own sake. So I say vote yes to the referendum.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Roth.
All right, so I'm very proud of my third grade daughter who's in the audience. She's running for Student Senate at Hilltop this week, and she suggested that we could use the same speech. So I'm going to try this. So I'm silly, goofy, and funny. I love to be helpful. I'm a good reader. And I love pizza. So that's pretty much all you need to know about me. My slogan is to honor the past and shape the future. I grew up in this community, and I currently work in this community, and I know the residents of this community. I went to school at Westonka when it was a much different school. And I think understanding that past, understanding that history, is essential for school board members. As far as shaping the future, my leadership style is to rely on facts, transparency, and process, and to try to build consensus. Then I rely on courage to make the right decisions, even if it's difficult. And from my many years serving in other community leadership roles, I have experience in how to engage with residents and manage through a public process. Thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts with you tonight. Let me leave you with my 4 areas of focus. Number 1, empower and support educators. Number 2, invest in district facilities and technology. Number 3, ensure a safe, secure learning environment. And number 4, provide reasonable fiscal oversight of district spending. Whether it's school board or student senate, this is what me and my third grade daughter both stand for, and pizza.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Heidi Marty.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting the forum and for all of you taking time to watch and participate. In closing, I would just say that I'm running for re-election because as a parent and a longtime community member, I'm extremely invested in the continued success of our public schools. I think one reason I enjoy serving on the school board is that in a way I feel like it connects me to the teaching profession. I always thought I was going to be a teacher, but my college coursework and other experiences kind of just made me go in a different direction. But what never changed was my unwavering respect for the amazing teachers that had a huge impact on my life and I know that the teachers here at Westonka do the same thing for their students every day. My belief in the power of education and the ability of educators to inspire and encourage and lift up our students has never been stronger. So while my contribution to education hasn't been in the classroom, I'd like to think that my efforts on the school board have helped create and will continue to help create a positive and productive environment for our staff and our students here at Westonka. And it is also, I'd like to just say, wonderfully encouraging to have my fellow community members willing to put their hats in the ring and run for school board and have us be rather unified in our support of the schools and just have a generally positive environment in this race. I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marty. And Mr. Quinn.
Well, thank you, Bill, and thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting, and again, to my fellow candidates up here stepping up to potentially serve. It's personally been an honor to be up here on stage. As I said in my opening statement, I'm running for school board because I believe in our schools, our community. Our teachers, staff, superintendent, and board have all worked hard to produce stellar results. We know those recent rankings and accolades. We should all be proud of those, though, as well, and with continuing to always strive to improve. I also believe it's important to support and retain our teachers and staff. The district has done some outstanding, they have some outstanding tenure and retention facts. Let's keep that going, though, as well. And here are some of the specific commitments I'm making ahead of and if elected to the board. Number one, supporting the capital projects renewal and bond referendum, which is a much-needed investment in our schools and our community. Being an advocate for parental and community involvement in our schools, truly listening to the concerns of our community and working hard to address them. And then supporting the goals outlined for this school year by Superintendent Borg, including a lot of those already mentioned, but those enrichment activities via sports, arts, culture, and safe and secure school environments and mental health services, though, as well. I'm confident that my professional and personal experience will allow me to serve our schools in a professional, collaborative, and thoughtful manner, but also with transparency and accountability. Let's continue to build off the hard work and efforts thus far and continue to be among the best in the state. With that, I humbly ask for your vote on Election Day, and thank you for Bill and the League of Women Voters for being here.
Thank you. All right, before concluding this candidate forum, bear with me, I have some thank yous I'd like to make. First, on behalf and foremost on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I want to thank the candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve our community. Audience, please join me in thanking the candidates with our applause. Thank you also to the League of Women Voters volunteers, our audience here, and those viewing this event virtually for your participation in this forum. Thank you to the Westonka School District staff for supporting this event and recording tonight's forum. And finally, we wish to acknowledge and thank the Lake Minnetonka Cable Commission for broadcasting live streaming and recording tonight's forum. On-demand viewing can be accessed at lwvwpa.org. For additional election information, we encourage you to visit vote411.org, the League of Women Voters award-winning one-stop shop where voters can register to vote, find their polling place, and learn how candidates stand on issues. Please vote in the November 7th election by absentee ballot or in person. Early in-person voting is already underway. Remember, your vote is your voice. The League of Women Voters welcomes new members, both women and men, at lwvwpa.org. Thank you and good night.